Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about which types of banners you should focus on. The initial banners or the reruns of the banners. For example, Define Motion Web card is going to come out next month. It is going to be the first banner in March, but there is going to be a rerun banner way down on the line, which is going to feature another strong speed card, which is going to be the Maruzensky speed card. However, it is about 5 months after the initial banner for Fine Motion. So this is going to be take two. I'm going to give you both perspective and what I think about them, and hopefully that will help you improve your future planning. Before I start the video, just know that this is basically my personal opinion. You can freely have your own opinions. So let's start with the Fine Motion banner. If you're going to pull on the Fine Motion banner next week, you are going to be paired with the Kamikaze Princess speed card. It is not the best speed card, but it's not terrible either. You can find some usages off of this card, but it's not like a very strong card compared to the other options that we have. And then we have Fine Motion. Fine Motion is the strongest wick card in the entire game currently on global, and it will stay like that for a very long time. So if you pull on the Fine Motion banner, you will enjoy yourself having an extremely strong wick card overall for the entire duration of making you track, and that is going to be something powerful. And then in mid-July is going to be the release of the Grand Life scenario. You will also have a very good card for that scenario until the release of Ramonio Wit, which is going to come out about November of this year. So this is where Fine Motion starts to get a bit of a competition, where this card is just outright better than Fine Motion. So now Fine Motion descends to the second best card in slot. Then we have the Grandmasters scenario. This is where Fine Motion kinda just falls off because the other cards have more speciality in what they give, or just have better growth compared to Fine Motion. The other banner is going to be Maruzensky and Nakayama Festa with card. So I'm going to be talking about these two cards because these are future banners, and the Maruzensky is going to be paired with Fine Motion. If you pull now on the Fine Motion on initial release, you will enjoy a card in making you track. I know it is a 5% race bonus card, but 5% race bonus does not make a card unusable. You will see that once Making You Track comes out, you will realize that for the most part you're still probably going to use Kitasan Black or other cards. Just know that 5% race bonus is enough for a card to be playable and Making You Track. So this card is usable and Making You Track. However, this card is essentially like 1 month before the Grand Life scenario in the Japanese version, so it's probably going to be about 2 weeks. So you will enjoy it for like a decent bet, making a track, being 2 weeks, and then once we get to Grand Life, this card will truly shine and it will be extremely good. And then in Grandmasters it will be very good too. And then in Project Lark, it's still going to be decent, but only for frontrunners. So for Nakayama Festa Wit, it is essentially an upgraded version of the Asar Dobar Wit card. It essentially has overall better stats because the trading effectiveness is higher, the mood effect is higher, it is a complete roamer. However, this card is going to be good if you want a strong roamer Wit card in general and you do not know what to place, because this card has 10% race bonus, which is nice. It has a unique effect where 20% chance where she would set the trading failure percent to 0%, which is very powerful. If you are low on energy and this card gets on an extremely good trading and procs this effect. It's kinda rare, but the value will be extremely high. This is essentially a very high rolling card. Then we have the Summer Maruzensky speed. One limit break is enough for you to be able to use this card comfortably. However, for making the track, you will essentially need 3 limit break for the 5% race bonus. For the limit break 1 versus limit break 3, a lot of people tell you 1 limit break is fine, and I do agree, it is usable at limit break 1, but at limit break 3, you get yourself more specialty priority and most importantly the hint level. At hint level 2, that means that when you get a hint for the Summer Maruzensky speed, you get level 3 hint instead of level 2 hint. While it doesn't sound like a lot, keep in mind that if you get the same exact skill from Summer Maruzensky speed at 3 limit break, you essentially cap the hint level for that skill, which means is that the pool itself will be reduced because it wouldn't give you a max hinted skill anymore. However, for 1 limit break, it would require you to click 3 times for that to happen. The unique effect is going to be extremely strong, especially in making you track. It gains 5% trading effectiveness pure level of the current trading facility. In summer, this is extremely powerful, especially if she lands on a wit training instead of speed, and there's a couple of wit cards over there, guts even, power, speed, and it's going to be extremely strong in the summer period. And of course, later on, when in making you track, you will get your trading facility level to potentially level 3, level 4. So it is essentially an upgraded version of Pika Pegasus. Let's say you skip the initial banner. So this banner is going to be including the Fine Motion banner and also the Summer Maruzensky card together. So the value on this is going to be extremely good. However, you wanted to consider, when does Fine Motion fall off? Fine Motion only has about 5-ish months of relevancy before she completely falls off. 5 months is practically a scenario worth of length. In November, which is only 2 months after this banner, you will get Ramyono Wit, which means that Fine Motion kinda just falls from being the best card almost instantly. 2 months is not really a good investment. However, I will talk about my perspective on if you should pull on this banner or not. Just keep that in mind. Because in December and January, you have Miharu Bourbon Wit, you have Ashton Machan Wit, you have also Opera O Wit. There is a lot of wit cards in the Grand Masters scenario, which would make Fine Motion not the best card. Then we have the Mr. CB. Mr. CB is going to originally come out on late April, which is of course going to be next month. So this card is extremely good for egg closers because this card has Daring Strike. Daring Strike is essentially probably the second most important skill after straightaway spurt in maps that require you to have straightaway spurt. So this skill is essentially basically the gold ship version unique but on a gold skill. This card is usable at 1 limit break. However, once we start moving more and more, you would like to have more limit breaks so that this card doesn't fall off with the trading. Next up is Tokai Teo. Tokai Teo is not really an interesting card. She is a complete roamer that doesn't have that much of trading effectiveness, but the skills, she has Nimble Navigator, she has predicted positioning, it can work sometimes, it just depends. This card isn't really going to be mainly used for that much, so you're mainly pulling on Mr. CB. However, let's talk about Mr. CB with the rerun of Super Creek. So let's say you completely skip Mr. CB. I don't really recommend it if you are an encloser player and pull on this better. Super Creek is still going to be extremely strong for couple of long champions meeting. There's about 3 left, where the next card that is going to be extremely good and better than Super Creek going to come out. However, in the Grand Life scenario with its mechanics, Super Creek is going to be extremely viable. So what you should do about this banner is, unironically, since Mr. CB can work at 1 limit break, is that you pull on the initial banner to get maybe 1 limit break on Mr. CB, and then later on you pull on the Mr. CB and Super Creek card to get them both to high limit break and potentially max both them out. So that is essentially it for the Mr. CB and its rerun. Here is going to be my thoughts. So whether or not you should pull on the initial banner or you should pull on the rerun of a banner, here is what I would say has a positive and a negative. The positive for pulling the initial banner is that it gives you the full value of a card's lifetime. Every single card in Umamusume, no matter what you are, you have a limited lifetime, which means that you wanted to try to get the maximum life value of a card. However, if you do pull on the initial banners, it will make your Ubas much better overall in terms of their stats, and then it frees up your bottle slot for something else that can be max limit break. For example, let's say I pulled on the Fine Motion initial banner, and let's say that I ended up with 3 limit break Fine Motion. I currently have 1 limit break, so that means is that I only get 1 copy and then I pity the other copy. So that is fine, because that means that I could use something like the Nice Nature Wick card instead of borrowing Fine Motion. So limit break 3 Fine Motion plus maximum break Nice Nature going into Make a New Track is going to be overall slightly better than just using Agia Stickion Wedge, for example, with maximum break Fine Motion. That is what I'm trying to convey with this point. However, it requires you to have a decent amount of carats saved, and you also need to have a good pooling plan from your own. But the biggest drawback, and this is something that I have seen commented a lot, is that you can't pull on much of your favorite Umas. So this plan is essentially, if you do not have that much of characters that you want to pull for, then you should just pull on the initial banners. You shouldn't really wait on the reruns if you do not pull for that much of Umas. So the next one is going to be pulling on the rerun banners. So the sad part is that it gives you much less value of a card in its lifetime. The cards already will be at like a multiple months of release already, and if you do PvP, it will make your Umas weaker due to the lack of options. For example, if somebody has 1 limit break summon Maruzensky speed, even though it's like a Grand Life scenario, there's still like a decent bet until the rerun happens. So at that initial like 1 to 2 months in the Grand Life scenario, they will make a front runner that is better than yours because they have access to top runner, while your bottle slot is probably going to be locked to something else. However, for the positives is that it requires less overall carats, because you are pulling on 2 separate good cards overall. So the amount of pulls that you would need in order to get them to high limit breaks is going to be less. However, again, you are sacrificing the overall value of a card. And of course, it lets you pull more on Umas, because you could save yourself a lot of carats there and you could spend it on a different Uma. So I'm going to be talking about my plan currently. On the 18th of February, I'll be pulling on the Valentine Mihono Bourbon, which means that my carat is right now is at 67,000 carats. Yes, I'm sorry, 67,000 carats. Let's say I had to pity, so now I'm down to 37,000. I will go on the Find Motion banner. I'll probably go to Petty, let's be real. I will only be at like 50,000 ish. It just depends on how much credits that we will end up getting by the Find Motion banner. Then in the Make a New Track scenario, since there isn't really that much of great must pulls on Make a New Track, I could just go for the Summer Maruzensky speed card. I know the Naruto Top Road banner exists at the Admire Vega, etc., but trust me when I say this, it is fine for you to be not using Guts bells and Make a New Track. There is still this traditional trading overall. Guts is going to be stronger in Make a New Track because of how the trading values work, but it's not going to be the only viable way to apply. So Admire Vega is not going to be 100% needed if you are not going to be using the Guts strategy. Not the Top Road, of course, is only livable throughout one scenario, much like Riko Kishimoto unless you had her at max or limit break. And then after Make a New Track period goes, I go to the Grand Life scenario and pull 400 total pulls on Light Hello, which means that I need to save up about 45,000 credits. In Make a New Track scenario, you will probably end up going from it to Grand Life with like 90 to 100,000 credits. So the tax for the PAL cards is not going to be that detrimental. And yeah, that's pretty much it. My opinion, if you want to listen to it, is that I don't really recommend people to wait on reruns. If you are playing the game, like at least for Champions Beating, I know that there is people that do not play Champions Beating, that is fine, but Champions Beating is where pretty much most of the game is going. And again, keep in mind that you could wait for the reruns if you are more of a casual player, but if you are just trying to be somewhat of a competitive player, I don't really recommend skipping the initial banners just for the reruns. If you have a decent pull plan, you will be able to pull on what you like and also the support cards, but try to not make it very condensed. If you are a free-to-play player, you will always know that you can't have everything. Unfortunately, you can't have all your favorite characters. You're not gonna have the support cards, so there has to be sacrifices to be made. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you found this video to be helpful, consider subscribing and consider joining the Discord, link in the comment section, and I hope to see you in the next one.